First of all, Brian, you did a really wonderful job pronouncing my name. I know how difficult it may be. So, without any further ado, I'm going to talk a bit about the ultimate WordPress CI/CD pipeline. So, first of all, I'm gonna admit that this title is a bit of a stretch because we can use WordPress in so many ways that it's difficult to create the one and only ultimate WordPress CI/CD pipeline. Because some of us will use WordPress as a typical CMS, some will use as a no-code solution. Some of us will build a headless application based on WordPress, and with each case, this pipeline would look totally different, or even you just wouldn't need it at all when you use it as a no-code solution. But I'm going to show some of the tools, some of the steps that are kind of universal, and it will be up to you to move them a bit around so it will fit to your needs. So um, this is me. I work at a company called Buddy where we are developing a CI/CD application. It's kind of easy to use. So if you would like to start your adventure with automation, give it a try. Go to buddy.works. But um, even if today I'm going to show some examples based on Buddy, uh, this is not about body. This is about the whole methodology. Because what is CI/CD? This abbreviation that many developers used, and I know that many people don't know what does it means, because CI/CD means few things. So first of all, the CI part means continuous integration. This means that every time when we code something new, we always test it. So every time we add something new to our code, we run all the tests just like this. Thanks to this, we are working on small chunks of changes, and those small chunks are constantly tested. So if we made a mistake, it's very easy to pinpoint when it happened, why it happened, just like that. So it's much easier to, in the end, produce a bug-free software. On the other hand, we have this CD part, and this, first of all, CD in this time doesn't mean compact disc. It means either continuous delivery, which means that every time after our code was tested, we are building all the assets and we are preparing everything for deployment. It's ready. It just needs that our either senior developer or project manager or whoever is responsible for our project presses the button to deploy it on production. So this is continuous delivery. And we also have continuous deployment. This is the most difficult one to achieve, because it means that every time when we will merge something into master or main, it will be released on production. So we need to have a very good testing suite. We have to be 100% sure about we can release it. So this is a bit more difficult approach, but don't worry. I hope that at some point you will get to this point that every time you will merge something into master, everything will be tested in such a perfect way that you don't have to worry about the quality of your product. Um, Before we go further, we have to talk about a foundation of CI/CD, which is version control. Because if you don't know what is version control, what is Git, sadly, you have to learn a thing or two about it. Good news is, really, learning Git is very simple. It's very simple, and it will help you in so many ways. Why? Because thanks to version control, uh, you have the full history of all changes in your code base. So you know who changed what, when, why. Uh, uh, I mean, this why is only when that person wrote a decent description, but let's hope that. Also, thanks to version control, we can work with something called branches. So we can work on many things at once, and we don't have to worry that one change in one branch will interrupt something in another. So overall, learn version control, learn Git. Without it, it's really impossible to think about this whole modern development. And the problem with WordPress and Git is like this. WordPress is older than Git. WordPress was developed, let me see my notes, in 2003. And let's remember, WordPress was a fork of another CMS. And Git was released in 2005. So overall, WordPress was never meant to be compatible with what we call now this modern web development, and we can really see it when we see the WordPress structure. It's really difficult to keep it in Git, because if we have plugins, we would either have to keep it in the repository or not. The same goes with how to update the core. Should we also update it in the repository or not? And there are many ways how we can store WordPress in Git repository. It really depends on what we are exactly doing with WordPress. Because if we are a theme or plugin developers, that's easy. We just store our thing in the repository, our whole plugin, our whole theme. That's it. The problem begins when we are an agency. We are an agency, and we have to store not only the theme, we also have to keep track of all the plugins. We have to be sure that the plugins are compatible with each other. So there are many things we have to care about. And I saw many ways how developers store WordPress in a Git repository. I saw when they stored like everything, and they updated even the core in the repository. I saw the approach when they only stored the theme, and also they tried to push all the functionality they written inside of the theme to have everything in one place. Another approach is to store the whole WP content folder without the uploads. But I would recommend one more approach, using Composer, because there are few ways that we can use Composer to manage plugins and themes. In my example, this is a tool called Bedrock, and Bedrock helps us to change the folder structure so we can easily have everything in our repository. All the themes and plugins and even core management is done thanks to Composer. Just a few words, if you are not familiar with Composer, Composer is a PHP dependency manager. So it helps you to not only download some dependencies, in our case plugins, themes, but it also helps us to make sure that they are compatible with each other, because we can add some rules that, for example, our plugin needs to have PHP at least 7.4 or something like this, and if we will be running Composer on an older version, we will get an error that it just won't work. So thanks to Composer, we can manage WordPress. Bedrock is not the only solution. I know that Alley is having a tool called Mantle, if I remember. InSpidey has their own suite, and probably if you would look over GitHub, you will find some other ways. But I think that Bedrock at this point is the most popular approach, and further I will show you, based on Bedrock, how to automate everything and how it can make your lives easier. Okay, so Brian, could you switch to my video, because I'll be honest, I am horrible at multitasking. That's why I decided to record the whole flow, and I will talk about it in real time. and I won't have to worry about clicking and everything else. So let me play the video. Okay, yes. So this is our our repository. You can see that that's better inside. And let's take a look at the composer file. There are a few interesting things here we can see. First of all, we have this repository connected called WP Packgeist. It's a great way to install all the publicly available plugins and themes. On the other hand, here is the list of libraries that we'll be downloading, and you can see root/WordPress 591. This means that every time when we will install everything, we'll get also WordPress 5.91. We can, of course, change the version, we can set it to latest, so as we want. And this is also an interesting thing, how Composer knows when to install which files based on type. So we know that MU plugins will go into web app MU plugins, plugins go into web app plugins, and so on and so on. That's easy. It's all based on the type. And in the end, we can see the WordPress install directory. It's in web/WP. So this is how the composer JSON file looks like. We also have a very interesting thing in Bedrock called environments. We can create the whole sets of environments, and this is the development one. With this, we have all these debugs turned to true, and we also have disallow indexing set as true. So this is something very, very, very useful, and we can set more of them. We also have staging. This is almost like the production one, but also with disallowed indexing. So we can be sure that our staging site won't be indexed in Google. And if we want to change the environment in the .env file, we just have to switch this wp-env variable to the one we want. So this is very easy to separate production from development, from staging, just by setting the .env file. And this is our website. It's kind of simple. It says hello world, and it's just another WordPress site. That's it. I deployed the initial deployment to production, so we don't waste time looking at how files are getting uploaded, because this is kind of a boring thing. And here we can see this action that just deploys everything from pipeline file system, which means we will upload not only what we have in the Git repository, but also the things we will create with all the actions in our pipeline. Here are, of course, our logins, passwords, and stuff like this, and the remote path when we are putting all the files. And of course, we are not moving the node modules because we won't need them on the production. Okay, so it's deploying. We saw that we have working WordPress, but one thing is wrong, because if we will take a closer look at our theme, in our SAS folder, we'll see that in color.sas, we should have body background color yellow. And we saw that our website is white. So the reason of it is that we deployed everything, but we didn't build any assets. And we have to convert SAS into CSS to make everything look as we wanted. That's why we are adding now an action called node. And we are going to, first of all, go into the directory of the theme, because we will be working inside of this zoologist theme by Automatic, a very nice one, by the way. We are going to install all the npm dependencies, because there is a package.json file, and we are going to run npm run build. This is kind of legacy project when it comes to those npm packages, and we have to downgrade our node version to node 10, because it didn't work on the latest one. So we got it. Time to execute everything. At the moment, we will be working that we will deploy everything manually, the time when I will press the button. and we can see that our SAS file was converted to CSS and everything was uploaded to production. So let's see if everything is working. Yes, it is. It's this beautiful yellow. You can see I'm a developer because I don't know a thing about selecting nice colors. Sorry. So now let's take a look uh, at the file system, because this is an interesting thing. I mentioned that we will be deploying things from the file system pipeline, not only the GitHub repository. And all those blue icons are the files from our Git repository, and all those violet ones, or whatever color it is, are the files that were altered in some way with our actions. That's why we have the vendor folder created during Composer install. And here we have, inside of themes, inside of zoologists, we see the assets folder that was created and the node modules because we ran npm install. So this is also a great thing that we can at any time see what is happening in our file system. Okay, so now let's go back into our WordPress. We don't have any plugins, and thanks to Bedrock, we can't install anything from inside the admin panel, which is great because we don't want our client to mess around, update things, install some weird plugins, right? That's why we are going to WordPress package and we are going to install Hello Dolly using Composer. That's why we are going back to our repository. We are going to edit the file composer.json. And inside of the require section, we are just going to add this the thing we just copied from the repository. So that's it. We are just committing changes. And when we go into our actions, now we have to add a new actions that will install everything from Composer. So we have to run Composer either install, either update. It depends on our strategy if we are using the log file or not. In our case, we will just run Composer update no dev, so only the things that are in the require section, not in the require dev section. So that's it. Let's press run and see what will happen. I mean, it won't be a surprise that we will install the Hello Dolly, right? And okay, so we can see that Composer update is running. It's taking a moment, and we have downloading, installing. So we have everything in our CI/CD pipeline file system. Then it gets uploaded to the production. We have to wait a moment, and that's it. We got everything pushed to production. Let's see if it's working. Yes, we see the best plugin in the entire WordPress history. Hello Dolly is activated, and it's working. To be honest, this is, I think, that the second time I ever activated Hello Dolly in my whole career. So okay, we got some things working. We are installing all the updates. We are creating assets, and we are uploading it to the production. The problem is that we are not sure if the website is working until the moment when we go there and refresh it. So let's test it automatically, because why not? We can do it. Every CI/CD platform will have some way to do this. It will be some way of ping or web or whatever. In our case, we'll just, after each deployment, we will ping our website and check if there is proudly powered, because this is the part of the footer on the website. Thanks to this, we'll be sure that we didn't only get the correct status returned, but the content was also generated. So every time when we will deploy everything, we will check if the website is still alive. We can also add some actions that will run on failure. So for example, if something went wrong, we can send a Slack notification or an email or whatever. It's up to us. So again, we have to wait for all the things to run. a bit later, I will show you how to make it a bit quicker. Um, so yeah, the waiting part of a CI/CD pipeline, sadly, it takes a while from time to time. But okay, everything is all right. So we know that this website generated this proudly powered section. So that's terrific. But like I said, we have those things that are running on and on and on, even if we didn't change anything either to CSS, either to Composer. So let's run them conditionally because we can. So let's go into this action. Let's go into conditions, and we can select to run this action only if there were changes to the specific path. So the only thing we need to check if something changed in Composer JSON, if we added some new plugin or thing like this. On the other hand, when it comes to npm, we have to check if something changed in the theme folder /SAS. So yeah, I had to. Okay, so we are doing the similar thing. Web app themes /zoologist /SAS. Okay, so until we will make any changes in those two places, those two actions won't run, which will make our deployment significantly faster. So let's see how it works. As you see, we got skipped and skipped. So thanks to this, our pipeline ran much quicker. Okay, that's perfect. So we have some basic. We are testing our application in some way, but let's test it more because this testing part is so important. There are many ways we can test it, but let's start with the thing that is currently very, very important: speed. We are going to add now a lighthouse action to check if our latest changes didn't cause any deterioration of our speed, of our accessibility, because with Lighthouse we can check performance, accessibility, best practices, and SEO. In this test, we will check if it's higher than 50, but it's up to you and to which value you use as reasonable. And also we are going to check the visual test. So we are going to compare a screenshot from the last deployment with the current one. It's a great way to check if our changes didn't cause any visual regressions. Of course, you shouldn't only test your homepage. You should probably test all the pages that are important for you. So, for example, a command section, a contact section, or sections that you know that your clients are constantly visiting, that are earning you money. So those are the most important in visual tests. Of course, this time we saw that Lighthouse passed because our website is quite quick, and the visual test also passed because we didn't change, because this was the first time we executed it. So let's change something in the SAS folder so we can see are the visual tests really working. And also after this, I will tell you one more important thing about the order of running things, because currently we are doing a small mistake, but I'll explain it later. Okay, so we'll change the background color to blue. And again, like I said, I'm a developer, so I don't have a clue about picking nice colors, sorry. And let's run it. Let's see what will happen. First of all, we will see that this time, while the composer skipped, the npm run build ran because we changed something in the SAS folder. And the problem is that we are testing things after deploying them to production. So this is kind of a mistake that I mentioned, but because we should have a staging server, we should first push everything to staging, check if everything is okay on staging, and if everything is okay on staging, then push everything to production. But like I said, this is an example. I'm just showing you how this can be, and it's up to you to manipulate it a bit. So as you see, we had to approve the visual change. And yes, we want it to be blue, so we approved it. And when we refresh our website, we can see that it's blue and it looks horrible. But that was the plan. So, like I mentioned, the order here is a bit bad. We should first upload everything to staging, do the testing on staging, and when everything is all right, then we can push everything to production. This is the best practice, and you should probably go with that way. Have a staging server or servers, it's up to you. Uh, okay, so we got our application built, uh, tested in a basic way, and deployed. That is cool, but let's go further because our theme has a tests folder. This means maybe we can run some unit tests on it. And yes, we can. We can see that in the composer file that there is pest PHP. So we are going to add a new pipeline in which we will run uh, tests, but this time we will go with the continuous integration approach. So we will test it every time. So that's why we will run this action not when I press the button, but every time when we create a new branch. So for example, if we will be creating a new pull request, it will create a new branch and this action will run. So we're ready. Let's add a new pipeline. And now let's add just one action, PHP. So first of all, because this is those tests are run inside of the theme, we are going into Web App Themes Zoologist. And next we are going to run Composer install and Composer run test, because this is the script name. So, and let's add it. Let's add a nice name, run pest PHP. By the way, pest PHP is really nice for unit testing. So if you didn't use it yet, give it a try. So for the first time, I'm going to run it manually to see if it's working. And we can see that, of course, it will take a second to install the new Docker image. Composer is installing, and we see is CFE dev test passing? Yes, it does. So our one and only test has passed. So this is great, but I had to push it manually. So now let's create a pull request. So let's go into our code. Let's do a very small change. For example, in the README file, we are going to add a smiley icon, maybe a bit below. Okay, a modern WordPress stack, smile. Okay, so that's perfect. And this time we are going to create a new branch and start a pull request. So let's propose changes. Let's create a pull request and let's see what is happening. You see, we already have this connected here. And because our test has passed, we can merge our pull request. I mean, I'm the owner of this repository, so I could merge it anyway. But if configured in proper way, we could block merging of some errors. But okay, maybe let's see. Let's go and try to break something. So let's go to the test folder. We are going to break the test to see what will happen if we'll try to push a bug. So expect false to be true. Of course, this is wrong. Let's create a new pull request and let's see what will happen right now. We are waiting for a moment and all checks have failed. So This continuous integration. Every pull request, every change you will push will be tested, and thanks to unit testing, you can see which test has failed, and from this point you can try to learn why. Of course, unit testing is not the only way. You can add more and more tests. You can add Cypress for end-to-end testing. If you have some rich JavaScripts, you can think about jest testing. You can think about functional testing. We really live in a beautiful world of so many tools, thanks to which we can test literally everything. So we don't have to worry about pushing bugs to production. So uh, as you can see, we created at the moment just two pipelines, one for deployment, one for unit testing. Probably when you will start working, you will have more and more of them, each one responsible for each environment, probably much more of them that will. Brian, could you switch to my presentation? I would be glad. And more and more mm, of pipelines, of tests, of many different things. And but I hope that the things that I showed you will be a great way for you to start your adventure with automating deployments, because I know that it may sound difficult at first, but the best way is to start. Remember, start small. Start with just deployments and then add a thing after a thing. So don't worry at first about giving your code a 100% coverage or things like this. Don't worry about it. Start small and then start adding more and more tests. Be more and more confident about what you are pushing to production. And with this, I wanted to say thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thanks, Maciek. That was really good. And you timed that. Whenever I do pre-recorded things, I always find like I either do it too slow or too fast, but you seem like you had it really down pat. So
Yes, because you don't have to worry about this later, and you don't have to stress about one more thing
yeah,
because you just have to watch you record it and talk about it. So.
yeah. So if anybody has any questions, we'll be sure to get to them. There was one question in there that I'll get to, but if you have any other questions, please post them in the chat or in the Ask a Question module, and I will get Maciek to answer them. So the first question from the audience was, it's a great presentation that shows the benefits of a pipeline, but not how to implement it aside from using Buddy. Are there any alternatives to Buddy? Obviously, you work for Buddy, but like if you were to do this, either you implement some of these pieces yourself or something like that. What would you recommend?
Overall, let's remember CI/CD is a methodology. It doesn't matter which way you will implement it. Uh, you don't even have to use an application, because you can use Buddy, you can use GitHub Actions, you can use GitLab. Bitbucket also has some automation, but you can also use, for example, Git hooks. There are applications called scripts called Husky, or oh god, I forgot the second name. Uh, but search for Husky alternatives. Uh, if you are working in a small team, or even you are a solo developer, you can run everything uh, based on before you commit to Git. For example, if you connect Husky, you can set it up that every time that you press commit, you want to commit something, before your files get committed, all your test suite will run, and
Mm.
you don't need Buddy for it. You don't need GitLab, GitHub, whatever. But like I said, there are applications that can make your life easier. It's really up to you. Like I said, I work at Buddy. That's true. But for me, the most important part is that you automate and test your code. If you go to our application, that's cool, fine. But I would be much more happier if you will just learn how to test and automate all your stuff. This is much more useful rather than learning how to use one application.
Right, right. That makes sense. And you were saying that typically this pipeline would be, you'd have different pipelines. One would be a staging pipeline, and then you'd have a production pipeline. Is
Yes.
there like what do you, for WordPress, is there like a particular setup that you recommend? Do you typically just have like a staging and a production, or do you have something more complex than that, or or do you even? I mean, like, I know when I build sites, like I do a lot of Jamstack stuff, right? Like it's common for me to, like, if somebody committed a PR, that PR actually gets deployed as, so I can see it live. Do you have anything that you do that sometimes?
It depends what hosting I'm using at the moment. Because, for example, Pantheon also has the thing that you mentioned, that I can have. They call it the multi-dev, and you can create a new WordPress based on your branch, and it copies the database from the probably from the master one or something like this. But yes, you can do as you told. So you can have as many WordPresses as branches. If I'm using some other solutions, I mostly go with either production and staging, or production development and staging. So the development is only for the developers to play around, to test. Staging is for us and the client to see how those changes are working, are they okay. And the production is, well, production.
And forgive me, because it's been a few years since I did any much WordPress, but back when I was doing it, typically when I was pushing the deploy, right, like the site was down briefly while the deploy was happening. I'm assuming that that's not the case for these kind of
It
situations, where
depends.
typically are you deploying to like containerized WordPress,
It
or?
it depends. It depends on many things. So there are so many ways we can deploy our application.
Mm,
I mean, the ways how we can deploy an application, or even WordPress application, we could do one more one more talk just about it. Because either we can do it as you said. So we are pushing the file after a file, and in this case there is a big chance that for a moment our site will be down because some files will be missing,
mm,
and that isn't a good approach. As you said, we can also go with the containerized approach. In such case, there isn't a problem. Or we can, of course, think about atomic deployment. So, for example, we are zipping everything. We are pushing the one zip file on
mm.
into another folder on our website. We are unpacking everything, and we are using links inside of Linux system to, for example, to copy the uploads folder. Thanks to this, it gets uploaded. We just change the folders on the production, and that's it. Everything is working, and we
Oh,
don't see even the moment when the site uh, was changed into another one. So there are many approaches. Or of course we can go with the first approach, but first enable some screen. Sorry, some changes are in progress. Wait a moment.
right, right.
Much better than
Yeah,
seeing an error screen.
yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, and I didn't even know that. I mean, this goes to show it's been a while. I didn't know atomic deploys were a thing in WordPress. So, yeah.
Also, I remember that AWS has had some. It was called Beanstalk, but it's also the way of containerized deployments. I mean, it's a really great solution for enterprise. The only thing that I really hated about it, the fact that once we were doing one big WordPress site, deployments took 40 minutes. So really,
Yeah,
there there wasn't a thing called a quick fix, because each quick fix took 40 minutes. So it was horrible. but
yeah,
we
no, that's
but we were sure about the quality of the deployment, because uh, we were running few machines in parallel, and first only the one machine was deployed with the new version. All the smoke test run, it was tested for a minute or two to see if is is it producing some errors. If not, other machines were changed too. And so
Hmm.
overall, wonderful thing. It was really easy to go back to some other version, and really everything worked really great. Apart from the upload time,
Yeah,
it was
that is a long time. I mean, that's
nightmare.
where what you mentioned about skipping things that aren't necessary because nothing
Exactly.
changed, and that is important. So we had another question. It says Bedrock introduces the use of .env files. How do you manage promotion of the site from dev to staging to production, keeping database in sync?
Yes, let's be honest. WordPress and database in sync is a pain. Is a real pain because we all know how WordPress database this looks like. It's pure chaos. Uh,
Mm,
to be honest, at my end, at some point, I started just using WP Migrate Pro from
mm,
Delicious Brains. This is a really great tool. They have also a CLI version, so it's so easy to use it as part of your CI/CD pipeline. And on the other hand, I just went with the approach that the production site is the only source of truth. So this is one thing. And on the other hand, I tried to what is possible to be kept as a file, some configurations. For example, advanced custom fields has this feature so that you can keep all your data about ACF in JSON files, and there are more plugins like this. And this was the only approach I was able to find, and it worked in the most jobs I had. So, like I said, production as a one source of truth. So you are always pulling from this and never push to production when it comes to database. And on the other hand, WP Migrate Pro to make your copying and managing databases as easy as possible.
yeah, I mean, I think WordPress has its special cases, but it's any database migration is complicated, I think.
I would
So
say that WordPress with it lack of structure. That's yeah. I mean the way how from the moment we introduced custom post types and the fact that many developers use them. I mean it's good. It's a WordPress feature, so why not? We should use it, but there are so many cases when we shouldn't use custom post types and use our own databases because it's easier than to do migrations. Everyone who is working with WooCommerce knows the horror of trying to move, for example, orders or something like this. It's everything is kept in this one table, and
mm,
it's a nightmare.
no.
But the good news is I know that after many years they decided to change it, and in some upcoming releases, uh, they're gonna be more separated. WooCommerce is gonna be more separated in terms of databases. So at last.
That's good to hear. All right, so it looks like that's it for questions from the audience. I think those were very good questions, and Maciek, I really appreciate. I know it's what time is it over there in Poland? It's like
It's
eight eight.
It's 8 p.m. And so when
Okay, not too bad, I
so
guess, but
in typical developer times, it's like the middle of the day, right? If someone's if someone was really like taking look quite closely into my presentation, they could saw that timestamps there, and they might be 3 a.m. at some point.
oh, yeah. Didn't you said you have young kids? What are you doing up at 3 a.m.? Didn't you mention you
Uh,
had kids?
yes, I
Yeah.
have, and this was the perfect moment because the kid was sleeping, so I had time.
See,
I had some
oh,
time for myself. Yes.
oh my God, my kid would wake me up so early that I needed some sleep, so I barely got any as it was. So, well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come present this to us. This was really, really cool. I think it's I was really impressed with how easy it was to set that up. I mean, I know you know what you're doing, but like that seemed like a complex workflow that you managed to kind of
Yes,
set
and
everything
this
up pretty quickly.
and this is also the important thing about CI/CD, because for some reasons I think that many people think that CI/CD and the whole automation is difficult. It doesn't have to. It really doesn't have to. It's a really good thing to start. There are really solutions that can make it simple. And I'm not only, like I said, not only us, but in terms of WordPress, there is also a solution called Branch CI, which is almost like Buddy, but only for WordPress, and it's great to start. And I think there's Deploy HQ, also a very simple solution when it comes to automating your deployment. So uh, if you think that working with all those YAML files of GitHub is too difficult for you, don't worry. Just try another tool, or like I said, maybe try playing around with those Git hooks, because this is also a great approach to start. Although you have to configure everything on your machine, which may be sometimes troublesome. But it depends. It really depends. There are
Yeah,
so, like I said, beautiful times we have so many tools that we can play around with. So.
definitely true.